everybody, James Shepard here. I'd like to welcome you to the Merchant Sales Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Nativia Banking. You can learn more about them by heading over to nativia.com/professional. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about the payments strategy puzzle. The payments strategy puzzle. Every once in a while on the podcast, I just have a bunch of stuff that I've been experiencing myself, and I want to share that with our audience, and today is a day like that. I believe this is going to be a very profitable use of your time today. I'm going to talk to you about identifying puzzle pieces, building your own puzzle pieces, and then combining those puzzle pieces into a payments strategy that is going to make you money. Once I'm done with that, of course, we're going to be visited by our friend Rich Norton, who's going to give us some sales tips for the week, and then Patti Murphy with the Insider's Report. But I'm going to dive right in today and talk about this. So as we think about the payments industry today, right, one of the big words that would come to mind is the word complexity. We see all of this complexity around us, and what I see is these two kind of extreme approaches to this complexity. The first approach I see is a lot of salespeople and ISOs who take the strategy of kind of having their head in the sand and, hey, we're just going to stick with what's simple and we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing for the last 10 years. And we're just going to hope that that works forever. And of course it will not, right? And so we have that extreme. But then I also see this other extreme, which is kind of just grasping at everything and saying, boy, we need to come up with a complicated strategy. And we're going to just, we're going to spend all of our time going after some crazy idea. And it's not practical. There's not a practicality to it. And so in today's episode, I want to break down and talk about a strategy as a puzzle. And this is how I've always thought about strategy. And lately I've been working on some big deals and just kind of thinking through the industry, thinking about my own business, and, thinking about long-term strategy to me is very much like putting together a puzzle. And ultimately the businesses that are the most valuable are the ones who figure out how to combine the right pieces and put the right pieces together to create the best combinations. Okay. And I'll explain more about that in a minute. But let's start with these puzzle pieces that I'm talking about. So first of all, I want to talk about identifying puzzle pieces. Now, what I mean by this is in the market today, there are trends, right? And there are, just obvious things happening in in our business, in the industry, that are puzzle pieces. In other words, you don't want to ignore them. Instead, you want to take advantage of them when you look at your strategy. So let me run through 4 of them that I wrote down, and there are hundreds of these, but I wrote down 4 that I think you want to be looking at. Okay. Number 1 on the list is integration. Right? That's a puzzle piece. When you look at your strategy and you say, well, what's my strategy in the payments industry going to be? Well, you probably want to start with the idea of integrated payments. Like payments as a standalone service is not dead, but it is dying, right? So we want to think about, how does our payment processing fit into the larger narrative, the larger business use case for whatever strategy I'm trying to develop, right? Does it fit into a point of sale system or to a vertical specific software or whatever it might be? But we got to start with integration. That's a puzzle piece, right? And so we think about whatever our strategy is, we kind of go, well, okay, wait a minute. Now, is there a way to make our strategy fit better with this puzzle piece of integration? Where does that go, right? How is my payment strategy integrated with software? Because we all know that software is eating payments, right? And so how does that fit? That's number 1. Number 2, verticalization. If software is eating payments, then the future of the payments industry is going to be tightly correlated or aligned with the future of the software industry. Well, where's the software industry going? The software industry is moving towards specialization and verticalization. In other words, we're going to see that most hair salons who 15 years ago all had a credit card machine, right, that maybe had different, server IDs or multiple MIDs on that little terminal, right? They all moved to systems like, Clover and others. And now we're seeing another shift as they all move towards, vertical specific solutions for hair salons, right? And those are going to have specialized booking. They're going to have access to inventory and managing that, hair salon experience in a very unique, specialized way. And we're going to continue to see that push to verticalization with specialized services that are going to be integrated in, banking, embedded finance, I believe eventually accounting and insurance and everything else. These services are all going to be integrated via API into software to make a very valuable, customized, specialized solution for each vertical. So, verticalization, that's a puzzle piece. Does it fit into your strategy? Maybe. It's one to think about. You kind of put that one up on the board. So maybe you're driving down the road as you listen to this. Kind of imagine as I'm going through this, imagine putting these words up on a whiteboard as these are like in a box, right? So in one box, we have integration and software. In another box, we have verticalization. And when we get to the end of this episode, you're going to start to think through, okay, how do I combine these, right, in terms of making a cohesive strategy? So these first ones, we're just identifying puzzle pieces that are available to everybody. Like every one of you listening right now has access to these puzzle pieces, right? This is, integration is happening. All of you could go partner with companies that integrate payments, right? Verticalization is happening. Everybody here can think through, how could I sell a vertical specific solution, or how could I serve vertical specific software companies, right? Number 3 is mobile payments. Now, these next two, and again, I could give you 50 off the top of my head here. We don't have time for that today, but I'm just giving you 4 to start with. But I thought let's go with 2 that are real obvious, and let's go with 2 that are a little more future focused, right? So integrated payments is like, duh, that's been around for a long time. That's a big one. Verticalization is like the obvious trend that's happening right now. But now let's get to the next 2, which is mobile payments. You might say, well, mobile payments, how is that a big puzzle piece? Well, because the idea is that consumers are beginning to think of their mobile device as their payment device and eventually even as their point of sale solution, right? So think about your strategy. What does it have to do with the mobile phone? Okay. This is a huge puzzle piece. And if you don't believe me, just track how many times a day you pull out your mobile phone and use it for something productive or not productive, right? So, what is it about your strategy that's embracing mobile, right? That's crucial. You want to be driving behaviors in a native, easy way on a mobile device. So, how does your strategy take that into account, right? Number 4 is artificial intelligence, AI. And I would say specifically large language models, LLMs, like your chat GPTs and many others. Now, again, this is very future focused. And I think this is where it's, tempting to go to the far extreme and say, well, we need to design our entire strategy around AI. Well, maybe, but that's pretty unlikely at this point. Right now, it's more of how could we be leveraging AI in our strategy to be more efficient, more productive, to create something more valuable. It's unlikely that it's the cornerstone just yet, unless you happen to have, hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in an AI strategy. Most likely, you're thinking about how can you use somebody else's AI tools in your strategy. So we have these 4 puzzle pieces, but you may take time to think through, what are the other trends that you see in the market? When you look at the market, what are the bets that you're willing to make? When you look at the market today, what do you say? I believe, I'm like very confident that in 5 years, this will be different. What is this for you? Right? Those are puzzle pieces. You're identifying existing puzzle pieces that are just available to everybody, but it's about who combines them in a creative way that makes all the value. Okay, next, let's talk about building puzzle pieces. So we've identified puzzle pieces, but what about building puzzle pieces? In other words, what are you doing? Okay. Now, I think what's really crucial is that a lot of times, especially for younger entrepreneurs, you might look and say, well, I'm not ready to launch a huge thing. I don't have a big grand strategy. What should I do? You should build valuable puzzle pieces. Okay. Because down the road, you're going to combine those puzzle pieces with other ones that you've identified in the market to create your next big thing. But don't get stuck in that idea of like, well, I don't know what I'm doing here. No, like always building valuable puzzle pieces that on their own are valuable and in combination with other puzzle pieces are going to be insanely valuable, right? So we want to be building these puzzle pieces. Okay. Here's some examples. If you're an individual agent, maybe the puzzle pieces that you're building are sales skills, right? So you're reading sales books, you're going to sales seminars, you're getting training, right? You're building relationships with local businesses, Okay. Those are two very powerful puzzle pieces. And down the road in 12 months or 36 months or 60 months, all of a sudden you're going to kind of go, hey, wait a second, there's a new trend coming. And I am really good at selling stuff. And I know several hundred local small businesses. I think I can take this puzzle piece over here in the market and I can combine it with this idea of I have these sales skills and these business relationships, and I could make a lot of money and I could build something valuable while I'm helping my merchants, right? And so these are puzzle pieces, right? So you improve your sales skill. If you're maybe a little step beyond that, maybe you're an ISO, right? And you're going, okay, well, yeah, I'm not individual agent. Maybe you're building pieces like a content-based audience. So you decide I'm going to invest, 1 day a week in creating my own podcast for local small businesses or Facebook group or a really informative weekly email newsletter of local events and things of that nature. Or I'm going to become a thought leader on LinkedIn. And so I'm going to read all these books and I'm going to try to put this stuff together, whatever it is. But you create a puzzle piece where you say, I don't know what I'm going to do with this audience yet, but I'm going to build this audience. I'll give you a great example of that from my own experience. You can go check out the Facebook group CC Sales Pro Community. I haven't looked at the exact numbers, but I believe it's the largest private, Facebook community for people who sell payment processing. I mean, there's thousands of people in there, right? You could go back and look at every post I've ever made in that group. I don't think I have ever one time promoted anything in that group. I've never made any money from that group. Never. And I still, at this moment, if you said, James, how are you going to make money from this Facebook group? I don't know. I really don't. I know that I will, but I haven't yet. Why? Like, that's a puzzle piece. That's a very, very valuable puzzle piece. Okay. I have a Facebook community that I own, I'm the admin of, and there's all these people in this Facebook group, right? Well, at some point, I'm going to find something that I think is a really good fit that's going to be mutually beneficial to that audience that's also going to help me make money and grow my business. And so I've got that puzzle piece. Right. So you just build it. When I built that, it seemed like the timing was right. And I put a lot of time into it initially. And I was like, hey, let's build this thing up. Right. That's eventually going to be valuable. I had no idea when I built it how I was going to use it. I still don't, but it's a valuable puzzle piece. Right. So content-based audiences, that could be a puzzle piece that you build. Another one is access to capital. So as you're kind of growing up the chain a little bit and you're like, okay, I really want to grow. Well, you're going to have to start making connections with people who have access to capital. And you're going to have to start talking about that and understanding that world. So you have access to capital, right? I spent years not worried about access to capital because that wasn't a big part of my strategy, right? And as I, move forward and grow my business, I've started making more of those connections. Why? Because that's the next thing that you need. That's a really important puzzle piece that you need is access to capital, right? So, these are all puzzle pieces. Then we can get into core competencies. So if you're a larger organization, you're trying to scale your business, you want to build core competencies. You want to have maybe you want to have developers and you have a team of developers. Talk about an expensive but very valuable puzzle piece. You have the ability to build your own software. What are you going to build? Well, we'll talk about that next, right? But you want the puzzle piece, right? Content creation, becoming really good at creating content. Maybe you have your own little studio and you start to experiment with that. What kind of content are you going to shoot? Well, it depends on your strategy, right? But that's a puzzle piece that you might have to work with. Building a good sales team, right? Having a sales team that's really good at selling stuff and and figuring that out. Maybe they're over the phone, maybe they're in person, but you have the sales team that's good at selling things. Finance, you have people in finance that are able to help you in that way. Operations, you've got strong operating people that are able to make sure the details are taken care of and customer service and all of that, right? So these are all puzzle pieces that you build, right? And what I would challenge you right now is, again, you're thinking about this whiteboard. Maybe you're at a whiteboard and you could literally do what I'm saying. Go ahead and write these words up on that whiteboard of, okay, integrated payments, verticalization, mobile payments, artificial intelligence. Those are puzzle pieces. Add a few more. What are the big trends that you see coming in the market? What are the bets you're willing to make over the next 3 to 5 years? Put those on the board. Now add the puzzle pieces that you already have that you've been building, right? Do you have a good sales team? That's a puzzle piece, right? Do you have solid operations? That's a puzzle piece, right? Whatever the case may be, do you have access to capital? Well, put that on there and then make another list of like puzzle pieces that you need to build or buy. Like, what do you need? What do you not have? And what are things that you're like, what would be really valuable? I've never created content, but I think that'd be really valuable to me long term. Okay, add that to your list and start thinking about what would it take for me to add that puzzle piece to the list of, the puzzle pieces that I have right now. Once you've done these first two steps of identifying existing puzzle pieces that are out in the marketplace, and then looked at the puzzle pieces that you have or that you can build, now you go to the final step, which is, okay, how do I combine these puzzle pieces to build a business strategy? Right. And this is where you allow yourself to get really creative and you look at these different puzzle pieces on the whiteboard and you say, okay, well, let's see which of these two puzzle pieces could I connect? And then you say, okay, what about 3 or 4 of these puzzle pieces? What are 3 or 4 that I could connect all into one strategy? Is there something I could do that would be really valuable that would leverage the fact that I have a really amazing sales team and that I have a couple of developers. I can't build my own software, but I could probably support somebody else's, right? And then I know I need to do something with integrated payments and I want consumers to use their smartphone, and you start thinking, right? What could you do? What vertical could you go after and take advantage of verticalization? Is there a technology partner that you already know of or you've done some business with? You could do a strategic partnership with them, right? You could do an acquisition, maybe if you're larger. You got to think through these puzzle pieces. How do they connect? And remember, the companies that make the best combinations of these puzzle pieces or these kind of value units that they are able to put together in unique ways, those companies are the winners. And when you look at the biggest success stories in business, even the ones you look at today, that is exactly what you see. And it's interesting because you don't always see these ideas like, wow, that was the most creative thing ever. I mean, look at Facebook as a great example of that, or Twitter. Um, how creative was that idea really? You know? I mean, it's not like they created a rocket, like Elon Musk creates rockets, like they didn't do something like that. They just said, oh, the internet is growing, right? There's a puzzle piece, the internet, and okay, people are spending more time on the internet, eventually more time on their phones, right? And then it's like human nature. Well, let's see, there's some puzzle pieces here of people like to be heard, they like to be liked, right? All these different things. And, people want to put this content out there and they're like, oh, well, let's make a software so people can just post their own content. You realize Facebook is not a big content producer, right? They don't own the content. They just created a platform for other people to do that. So you got to think about what are these puzzle pieces that exist, the trends, and then also what do you have? In the case of Mark Zuckerberg, he knew how to code and he had friends that knew how to code a lot better than he did. And so they came together and they're like, well, we can build anything. Let's build this. It's simple. It's a simple idea to build and test. Let's build it. Let's try it out. And oh, guess what? We have a lot of connections with college students. So let's start with college students and let's see how that goes. Again, they're taking puzzle pieces, and they were puzzle pieces that many, many other people had, but they just put them together in a unique way. The payments industry today is no different. There are all these different things happening, and we all have access to these things. We can all see the trends. We can all identify these things. That's not the competitive advantage. The competitive advantage is how are you going to combine these different trends together with your core competencies to create a strategy that's really going to be fantastic. Last thing I'll leave you with is this. If you've gotten to this point of the podcast and you're kind of like, well, James, that all sounds great, but I still don't know what to do. I don't know what my strategy should be at this point. Then go back to the basics. Okay. Go back to the basics. Software and payments. Okay. Software and payments. Just say, okay, what's a vertical I want to go after? What type of business do I want to market to? And then ask yourself 2 questions. Okay. What do they need in terms of software? That's the first question, right? What are the software needs of these businesses? How are they underserved? What features do they need that they currently don't have? Okay. That's first. Figure that out. Find the right partnerships. And number 2, how do you integrate payments into that equation? That's it. Start there. Software and then payments. Hopefully this episode is a help to you. I hope it just kind of gets you thinking, and maybe 2 years from now, you'll email me and say, James, I was listening to that podcast on a drive and I came up with a really unique strategy. And here's what happened with it. I hope if that's the case, shoot me an email and let me know that, james@ccsalespro.com. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll move on to the next part of the episode here. So, Rich, last week we were talking about goal setting for new agents. And, I wanted to transition a little bit here and talk about mindset as we get into the next few episodes of this. And I want to talk to you about the mindset of looking at this as a business versus looking at this as a job. And I know there's important components of each. So let's start with the business aspect of it. When representatives come into this, what is your thought around how they need to perceive it as a business and what that means for them getting into this career?
I tell everybody coming in, we put you in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And
Mm,
when you think about this, if you were to buy a franchise, and a lot of these franchises will tell you, well, if you really work at it and you got to put your all into it 6 days a week, 7 days a week, you might make $150,000 a year, but it's going to cost you 100,000 up front
right.
just to get to that level. Now, the beauty of this business is you don't really have to come up with anything. All you got to do is make a commitment. And sometimes people really don't understand how big this business is. I mean, you can
Right.
reach a level where you should. If you're not making six figures a year right away or close to your year or 2 years, then you're in the wrong business. If you're looking for a job where you just want to get by, then this is not for you. But if you have the mentality of this is an incredible opportunity, I see people that are making 50,000 a month, 5 years. I see people that are traveling all over the world. I see people that are becoming multimillionaires in this industry. That's the opportunity that we have. So
Yeah.
again, it's as big as you want it to be, but you have to really understand that and just start thinking big. For
Yeah.
example, you can be like a popcorn salesman. I'm a popcorn salesman. I make 50,000 a year, or you can be Orville Redenbacher and make millions a year selling popcorn. So it's all
Right.
in the right mentality. Think big.
Yeah, and I think a lot of agents too, when they get into it, they have this misconception where they think of it a little too much like a job in terms of the opportunity where there's no sacrifice. So as you said, yeah, you don't have to spend 100,000 or more like you would if you were starting a franchise. You don't have to make that upfront investment, but you do potentially have to invest in maybe even scaling your lifestyle back a little bit for a few months or so while you get going. You have to make that investment of talking to your family and saying, "Hey, maybe it's going to be a little stressful for 6 months." Why? Because I'm starting a business. And I think that's really crucial. But then I love, what the other kind of irony in our business, Rich, and I think we both agree on this, is that the irony is that to be successful in this particular business, you have to treat it like a job. So talk about that a little bit. What is this kind of, ironic mindset shift of like, okay, hey, I started a business, but then you have to work it like a job, right?
Yes, I have this amazing opportunity. I'm going to be super successful. Oh, you mean I got to work? I knew there was a catch to this,
Yeah, right.
but yeah, it takes 100% commitment, and you really have to set a goal to be in the 10% club or the 1% club. So, what does that mean? In order to be in the 10% club, you have to be willing to do what 90% of people are not willing to do. If you want to get into that ultimate 1% club, that means you have to do what 99% of other people won't do. It takes a commitment, because everybody will look at other super successful people and say, boy, they're lucky, man. Must be nice. We hear that a lot. Must
Yes.
be great. We travel all over the world. Must be wonderful to have that nice car. But they don't realize the commitment that goes in. And I've been doing this 24 plus years. I still feel like a kid, but I think about when I first started, and a lot of people don't realize that when I first came into this business, I was broke in every phase of my life. And many of you, if you get to know me, you'll hear my testimony, but a lot of people don't realize that. And I needed to make money like a month or 2 months beforehand. And it was like, I am not going to give this a try. I'm going all in. This is my second opportunity in life. I'm going to go out and make it happen. 100% commitment. What does that mean? That means I got to get up early in the morning, even if I don't feel like it. I got to get myself in shape because, that's another thing too. You want to be healthy. You want to eat right. You want to sleep right. Be success in every phase of your life. Eat right, get out in the field, make that commitment that What do I need to do to have success? I'm putting 25 business cards into my pocket. I'm going to talk to 25 businesses today, and I'm going to work it and treat this like a full-time job. And I'm going to do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I'm going to do that for weeks, for months, for years and years. And then you'll wake up in the morning, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, and you'll say, it's not about the money anymore. Now I'm in a level in life where I can go to a higher level and I can help other people, because I don't do this for the money, obviously. Right. I love it, and I love to help people when it comes to having success in this industry.
So, Rich, for those who are listening in that are like, wow, I would really like to have a mentor, I'd like to have somebody I could talk to about the business, potentially look at joining your team, where would you send them to learn more?
And we have team leaders, field leaders all around the country that are having great success, and you'll get a chance to meet all of them if you're part of our organization. Reach out to me at 904-434-4635. Email me, payrock, Payroc, Rich Norton at gmail.com. I'll spend a good 20 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever we need. And if you're a good fit with joining our company, our team, we will get you started on the road to some incredible success.
Thanks, Rich.
So, James, we've talked a lot about buy now, pay later, and how adoption is going great guns, and how there's plenty of opportunity out there. But, one of the downsides of this is that often consumers are paying down these loans using their credit cards.
Yeah.
And now comes news that Chase Manhattan Bank is putting the kibosh on its cardholders using their Chase credit cards to pay down buy now, pay later.
Yeah, I saw this. Very interesting.
Yeah. The prohibition isn't effective till October 10th, but it's a big deal. Chase has a lot of cards out there.
Right.
Surveys show that about 1 in 10 consumers regularly use buy now, pay later. Many do it for cash flow purposes. And they tend to like it for big ticket items.
Right.
If you pay it down in the agreed upon period, it's an interest-free loan.
Right.
That's how I do it. I like it that way.
Yep.
The programs may also make it fast and easy to borrow money because you don't have the hassles of credit checks.
Right.
It's most prevalent in online purchases like airline tickets, furniture, appliances, things like that. And most online merchants offer 3 very popular programs: Klarna, Afterpay, and Affirm. Typically, these programs require down payments equal to 25% of the purchase, followed by equal bi-weekly payments, which typically post, as I said, to credit cards. Problem that some people are seeing is that when a consumer pays down a purchase, use a buy now, pay later purchase using their credit cards, they're piling debt on top of debt.
Right.
And this has come to the attention of people like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau,
right?
Which did some research and found that a lot of the people that are doing this are experiencing financial distress and have low credit scores. They're more likely to be highly indebted, have revolving debt balances or delinquencies on their credit cards compared to those who don't use buy now, pay later. And they also tend to be customers of more, high interest financial services like payday loans and pawn loans and bank account overdrafts.
Yep.
So earlier this year, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau issued an interpretive ruling that posits these transactions should be treated like credit cards and accorded the same consumer protections that apply to credit cards.
Right.
So like the right to dispute charges, to demand refunds when a product gets returned, the need for billing statements. Refunds are important, the Consumer Watchdog Agency said, because according to its research, 13% of these transactions involve returns or disputes, which I find very interesting.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this. We've done these things ourselves, and course, we're not financially distressed, so I guess that's why we don't
Right.
do things like this. But it kind of reminds me, I remember way back being someplace and seeing somebody that had a really nice dress. It was a wedding or something, had a really nice dress.
Right.
And her plan was to return it after the wedding was over. I'm like,
Right.
really? I mean, something like that just would never occur to me, but
Right.
there are people that do stuff like that.
Yes.
So anyway, Chase, it's important to note that Chase is not the only bank that's taking its credit cards out of the buy now, pay later equation. Capital One took a similar stand back in 2020.
Right.
And I suspect other banks are apt to follow. Not just because paying down a loan balance by accruing interest on a credit card looks bad. The reality is that many large bank card issuers have their own buy now, pay later products.
Right. Exactly.
Chase, for example, has a program it calls Pay Over Time, which
Right.
allows checking account customers to repay purchases for installments over 8 weeks.
Right.
Capital One has something similar.
Yeah.
So, you're going to see these large banks saying, well, wait a minute, we don't mind having these extra balances, but we can have better customer stickiness
Right.
if we have, and keep them out of trouble and keep us out of trouble
Right.
if we offer these products that are tied to their DDAs. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's ultimately, to me, Patty, it sounds a lot like a data issue, right? In other words, okay, if I'm lending you money, it's because I've seen the data on you currently, and I've made a
right,
decision to give you a $10,000 line of credit on your credit card or whatever.
right,
Well, I don't like the fact that you can now go out and just borrow an extra $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, and I don't really have the data on that.
right,
And now you've layered your debt on top of the debt that we already were offering you, and so it's all of a sudden it's like I don't have as a creditor, I now do not have a clear picture of the financial condition of the person who's borrowing money from me,
right.
and that's a really bad position to be in. And I think the lack of kind of regulation as well around BNPL kind of
Mm-hmm.
accentuates that problem, makes it even worse because
Sure.
there's just not a clear picture of that lender all of a sudden. And again, yeah, I agree. The kind of jet fuel to that is they have their own BNPL, which has two benefits. One is they get to make the money on it, but then also that gives them a clear picture of we know all of the lending that's gone in here and what our level of risk is with this particular consumer.
Yeah, and it's also, these ones that they're offering are loans against DDAs, against
Right.
checking accounts,
Right.
which is a little bit easier, to approve because it's
Right.
money that's going in there all the time.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's it, it's not a loan against a loan, it's a loan against an active balance.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
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 Very interesting. Yeah, we'll be. And what was it? Just last week or week before we've talked about
Exactly.
enable financing,
Right.
and or enable and how they have their different financing platforms and things. And so I think as the ISOs get more into that world, I think staying educated about all of that's going to be crucial.
That's really important to stay educated about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks, Patty.
Mhm.